Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, quadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone, where it teaches us truth and sincerity. And a shout out to Yakim that's out there on four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Barak the yahawah, barak the yahawashi, bahasham, quadash, barak atham. So, I'm back. I didn't come back as soon as I had hoped to, as 2 hours had already gone by on the previous video, so I just decided to go ahead and continue here. Continuing onward, the least of the flock blocking them out, the least of the flock bringing out the rest of the nations to fight in the third woe, that is Amalek. So here's what's going on in Gaza.
Let's see what the situation looks like on the ground in the Gaza Strip through our man, Ashraf Shannon, who is standing by for us and joins us via satellite out of Gaza itself. Ashraf, over to you.
Yes, Arash, just 25 minutes ago, Israeli airstrike killed a Palestinian man in central Gaza. This brings to 11 the number of Palestinians killed by the Israeli regime forces since yesterday, and they include, of course, the top commander of the Islamic Jihad's military wing, the Al-Quds Brigade's Abu atha, who was assassinated in the early hours yesterday, and also his wife was killed in that assassination plot by the Israeli regime. So basically, this man who was killed about half an hour ago is the first fatality in Gaza due to the Israeli escalation that prompted retaliatory attacks by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad's military wing, the Al-Quds Brigades. The situation, as you said, it was rather calm for the past few hours, but the Islamic Jihad's military wing resumed firing rockets and mortars into the Israeli areas adjacent to the Gaza Strip, and there was heavy attacks on Israeli security forces close to the security fence in the east of the enclave. Along the eastern perimeter of the Gaza Strip, all the way from southern Gaza and Rafah towards the north, and Beth Hanun and Beth Lahiya, Israeli soldiers are stationed not far from the security fence there, and the Islamic Jihad resistance fighters have been attacking Israeli soldiers since yesterday. The situation is still very tense, and things could really escalate into a full-blown war, because it seems that the Israeli regime is determined to cause as much damage and death to the Palestinians in general, especially in Gaza. And as you remember, Arash, it was 2007 when Israel launched in late December 2007, 2008, an all-out war on Gaza, and again in 2012 and 2014. Since 2008, Israel has killed thousands of Palestinians in Gaza and caused a lot of havoc and destruction. Palestinians believe the reason for this is the fact that the international community continues to turn a blind eye to Israeli atrocities for over 7 decades. And Palestinians, especially in Gaza, they have been blaming in recent years the fact that some Arab regimes in the Persian Gulf region have been normalizing their ties with Israel, and this has given the Israeli regime the green light to further violate the rights of the Palestinian people.
Of course, I remember what you just referred to, Ashraf. I have spoken to you on each and every one of those occasions since 2007, 2008. But as I speak to you, Ashraf, we are getting breaking news on the Press TV screens that Israeli warplanes have targeted Khan Yunis and Rafah within the Gaza Strip. I'm not really sure if there are new attacks or You better tell us about that. And as well, Ashraf, what I'm always interested in, and I always ask you, is, it goes without saying, for people basically watching news broadcasts like this, it's very, very important for the people of the world to know how are the Gazans holding up. What is, given the fact that Gazans, of course, you know better than I, are no stranger to attacks like this. You just mentioned the previous years and the attacks as such. But how are they holding up now? How is the spirit among the Gazans under these attacks, and perhaps the fear if they're going to continue?
If you still hear me.
I can't hear you, Ashraf. I can't hear you.
Repeat that question again. I lost the audio for a while.
Well, Ashraf, I was basically asking you about the spirit among the people. Like I said, it goes without saying that under such circumstances, the way people can hold up to the situation is very, very important. And I'm sure that's the point a lot of our viewers want to know.
Yes, it's a very good question. Well, since that first war, at least even the war in 2008, it was very clear that the Palestinians in Gaza are it's very hard to break their will, and they're very much behind the resistance factions, and they are, despite the loss of life and the loss of property and the loss of many things and the traumas. Ask anyone on the street in Gaza, they'll tell you they're 100% behind the resistance. And deep inside, when you talk to people, talk to your neighbors, talk to anyone, they will keep telling you, despite despite the Israeli atrocities, they will continue. And they are supporting the armed resistance. And not only the armed resistance, even since March 30th, 2018, Palestinians have started the Great March of Return, and it's a peaceful form of resistance. But Israel confronted that peaceful action by killing hundreds of protesters and injured thousands more.
And that's just it. That's what this devil loves, is killing. He shows no mercy at all, And that's just it, though, is you can't make peace with this devil. No, this is the third woe that's coming quickly, and the least of the flock, Amalek, is drawing everybody into this war. And just as they wanted an ethnic cleansing in Gaza and in, of course, the West Bank, they want the same ethnic cleansing, and they're using Gomer to do it in Syria, ethnically cleansing the Kurds. Continuing onward, this from Hezbollah, U.S. allies benefiting from Lebanon unrest to advance own interest, Hezbollah official. Because again, Hezbollah was one of the first to come to the aid of Bashar al-Assad when the insurrection started, because the terrorist groups were coming in from the Golan Heights and from Gomer and all his bands and just pretty much wreaking havoc. Hezbollah was the first to heed the call of Syria before Russia stepped in. A high-ranking official from the Lebanese resistance movement, Hezbollah, says the United States and its allies in the Middle East are taking advantage of the anti-government protests in the country in order to attain their own political objectives. Right, so you know who's behind this Mossad operation. Vice President of the Executive Council of Hezbollah, Sheikh al-Domashi, said on Wednesday that his movement distinguishes between the righteous demands of our protesters and the political schemes of those who are exploiting the mass protest movement to achieve their own goals. It is wrong to confuse the sufferings of people and their real demands with the political projects which seek to take advantage of the state of corruption in the country. And that's what they're doing in Iraq too. So we know it's the least of the flock drawing everyone into this war. It is now clear that the United States and its allies have infiltrated into the ranks of the protest movement and are trying to guide it. They have a political plot that they want to impose on Lebanon. The economic and corruption issues in Lebanon are their last concerns, Damash said. The senior Hezbollah official then attributed the financial crisis in Lebanon to sanctions imposed on the country. Lebanese companies deference to invest in Syria due to the fear of triggering Washington's punitive sanctions on themselves, closure of some banks and financial institutions, and preventing China, Russia, and other interested countries from divertly investing there. So you can see this insurrection happening in Lebanon, just like what they're doing in Iraq. It's the least of the flock, Mossad, drawing them out. America does not intend to address Lebanon's economic and living conditions and help the Lebanese get rid of their sufferings. It rather wants to get rid of the elements of their supremacy, including Hezbollah resistance movement to ally Israeli state, Amalek, ensuring its security and return Lebanon back to the time of weakness. This is what U.S. Secretary Mike Pompeo said, and Lebanon and the Lebanese should be helped to get rid of Iran's influence, Damishi highlighted. Pompeo wrote on his Twitter page on November 5 that the people of Iraq and Lebanon have a right to free themselves of Iranian influence. So you see what's going on there. The least of the flock drawing them out into this war with Persia, because Persia's the main one that they want the war with. But wait, there's more on this. Trump extends 1979 national emergency regarding Iran for one more year. So again, just putting sanctions on him. President Trump has renewed the national emergency regarding Iran, which has put in place 40 years ago following the takeover of the American embassy in Tehran. Yeah, because they threw the puppet government out back in 1979. In a notice released on Wednesday, the White House announced that the emergency state declared in Executive Order 12170 of November 1979 with respect to Iran will remain in effect for another year. On November 14, 1979, by Executive Order 12170, the President declared a national emergency with respect to Iran pursuant to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and took steps to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States constituted by the situation in Iran, read the notice signed by Trump. Our relations with Iran have not been yet normalized, and the process of implementing the agreements with Iran dated January 19, 1981 is ongoing. For this reason, the national emergency declared on November 14, 1979, and the measures adopted on that date to deal with that emergency must continue in effect beyond November 14, 2019. So, again, just continuing their shit, And here's another one. And this is a video, so I think I'll just go ahead and get that. U.S. doesn't want stable, secure Lebanon.
U.S. does not want Lebanon to be a secure and stable nation because it is seen as a rival to Israel. And the United States and Israel are in each other's pockets, and whatever Israel does or wants, the United States will go along with. So the fact that there are now legitimate protests, as the Secretary said, these are happening, and that's fine. People have a right to protest. The United States is trying to exploit those as showing the people of Lebanon as being very dissatisfied with their government and wanting a new form of government. This is not the case. They simply want certain changes made, and the leader of Hezbollah has said that those are legitimate requests and must be responded to. This is not in compliance or in agreement with U.S. goals, but it is certainly what's right for the people of Lebanon.
When it comes to this country's infrastructure, we know that we have bridges and dams that are in bad shape, but the extent of it, I think, is overlooked. And here in this article, they're talking about just in Ohio. More than 100 dams across that state are classified now as a high hazard, meaning that there's people that live below this dam or in the floodplain below the dam that would be affected by this if the dam was to give way. Now they have, like I said, more than 100 dams, so plenty of examples of high hazard areas, but they're not evacuating these people, and there's really not much of a plan in place to do anything about these areas, to come through and reconstruct it or to add new support or anything like that. And of course, it always comes down to funding. But I recall when Trump came through back last election, he had stopped in Cincinnati and had specifically stated to everybody there listening that he was going to fix that bridge that crosses from Kentucky into Ohio there in Cincinnati, and then get to work on fixing all these other bridges and places that needed upgraded because they're old and falling apart. So with that statement, he knew, they know, where we sit in terms of this infrastructure across the country, how old a lot of it is. So when we see that no one's doing anything about it, they have to know that it's continuing to rot away, and that at some point it's going to need maintenance, just like anything would in any business or in anything out there. To keep things working the right way, you have to keep maintenance and keep these areas under a watchful eye, so to speak, especially if they're areas that are susceptible to erosion, earthquakes, things of that nature that could add to a wall or a berm giving way and cause some destruction. But man, when they talk about more than 100 dams in Ohio alone, what do you think that number is across the country? Things to think about. I'll leave a link with more info.
Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor to yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, quadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, great millstone. Salutation and much love to you, Akim, out there pushing out this word and truth and sincerity. And I just want to do a quick video in transit here. I was just meditating on something, about the Matthew 25, the 10 virgins, the 5 wise and the 5 unwise virgins. All right, and I was just meditating, about those 5 unwise virgins. They got the oil, they just didn't have enough. All right, they ran out of it. They ran out of oil. They ran out of steam, so to say. All right, and then when the shit hits the fan, then they want to come and ask those that took enough oil to begin with. They want to ask for their oil. That's why the scriptures say many are called but few are chosen, because you're going to have people that have some kind of oil. They're going to have a little bit of oil, but what? They don't have enough, sufficient enough. All right. Another scripture that comes to mind is count the cost, man. Make sure you got enough to finish the course, man. You got enough to finish. If you're building a house, you want to make sure you're going to have enough material to finish the house. You don't want to put up the walls and then don't have enough for the roof. That's not a house, all right? And the same thing with this truth, man. You want to have enough oil, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to endure unto the end, all right? To ensure that you're going to be, all right, able to, make it to the end with. And how do you do that? By making your calling and election sure, man. Doing everything in your power, all right, to grow in this truth, all right, praying, fasting when need be, okay? Just ultimately, man, just working on your own salvation with fear and trembling, man. Because it's gonna come a time when a lot of dudes is gonna leave, man. The spirit's just not gonna be dealing with them, all right? If the spirit was dealing with them at all. Because what? They're going to run out of oil. One thing, we'll use a crude oil for an example. One thing they use crude oil for is to make gasoline. All right? And what happens if you're going on a trip, but you ain't got enough gas, man? You're going to run out of gas. And you're going to be stuck on the side of the road. All right? You ain't going to make it to your destination. And that's what's going to happen with a lot of these unwise virgins, man. They didn't take enough oil. And then they're gonna what is it? Isaiah 55:6. Knowledge of wisdom shall be the stability of their times. That's that oil. All right. And then in Amos 8 and 11, the famine of the word. Then people are gonna be seeking it to and fro and not gonna be able to find it. That's gonna be the people that didn't get the enough oil, man. Now they want more. Now that it's too late though. And then some people never even had the oil, and they're gonna try to seek it. It's definitely too late for them. If you didn't even have an ounce of oil, then you was a vessel or a pot with cracks and holes in it, man. You didn't get nothing, no kind of oil. So they're shit out of luck regardless. But those 5 unwise virgins, man, that they took but not sufficient. I don't know what to tell you, man. You bet. Hey, well, it's already ordained, Lord's will. We be part of that the wise virgins that took enough oil, right, to endure this journey. Because that's what's gonna keep you, it's stable in them times. All right, that's what's gonna keep you level-minded, man, in the right spirit. All right, knowing what's happening, understanding, having the wisdom of what's happening, understanding of what to do through the spirit. All right, but guess what? That's only for those wise virgins, man. And those that are not defiled with different philosophies, and just living in nonsense philosophies of this world, man. Dibbling and dabbling in different doctrines, false doctrine. You might be calling yourself an Israelite. That's the thing. You got to have the 100% truth. That's the wise virgins are the ones with 100% truth. That's all the oil. They took all the oil. All right. They didn't leave half the oil. All right. They took all of it, not 90%. Because if you got 90% truth or 90% of that oil, you're not gonna make it to your destination. All right. You got to take the scripture talk about eating the whole roll, man. You can't just claim to be an Israelite. That don't mean what is that? You're an Israelite, okay? Now what? You got bug outs that know they're Israelites, sitting in bathtubs, sipping on wine with the apocrypha in their hands, making music videos. That don't make you a wise virgin. That don't make you part of the elect, because you're an Israelite. All right, those 5 foolish virgins. All right, they knew they were Israelites, but what? They didn't take enough oil. They didn't eat the whole roll. All right, so what? They weren't able to overcome at the end. So this comes with doing diligent search for wisdom. All right, for that oil. You can't just expect to be saved because the next man got the oil, but you just listening to him. Which ain't nothing, you're supposed to, but I'm saying you got to do more than just listen. Be doers of the word, not hearers only. All right, you watching just countless videos, but you're not doing a damn thing. What profit is that to you? Just listening to videos. Well, you gonna do something about it, man. All right, you gotta labor for that oil, man. It's not just gonna be given to you, man. Wisdom, it says she is easily found by them that search her, roughly paraphrasing in the book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. It said you got to search for her, man. You got to do that due diligence, put in the effort to find her, and then she's easily found, man. Then she loads you up with that oil, fills you up, fills you to full. All right. But if you half-assing it, you might find her and she give you a quarter tank. You're a foolish virgin at that point, man. Because you're not putting your true 100% effort into seeking knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, seeking the Lord while He may be found. You just lollygagging, just because you're an Israelite, you think that's it, man. There's more to this than just knowing you're an Israelite. All right, Kendrick Lamar knows he's an Israelite. Look at him, he's a fucking bug out. That don't mean a damn thing just because you made a song talking about don't call me black no more. I'm an Israelite. Okay, now what? What scripture is that? That once you figure out you're an Israelite, that's it. That's the end of the story. All right? The Lord talked about feed my sheep, man. If you love me, feed my sheep. If you love me, keep my commandments. There's more to it than just, hearing this word, man. You have to digest it. All right? Because if you don't digest it, you never get to the bitter. Because it'll be sweet in your mouth. Oh, I'm an Israelite. All right, but now eat this whole roll and digest it, and see how it's going to be bitter in your stomach. You see, a lot of you so-called in the truthers out there that calling yourself Israelites in these other camps and hell, maybe even in Great Millstone. All right, You haven't fully digested this role and figured out what it's all about, man. You ain't got all the oil. And then you playing with the word, man. And the Lord is gonna kill all you phonies out there, man. This isn't a joke. This isn't a fad, a trend. All right, this is of severe consequences, man. If you don't do what you need to do, what you got to do correctly, man, and directly, man. Ain't no beating around the bush. Hey, here at Great Millstone, we give it to you raw, rugged, and rough, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, keep it moving. If you don't like what you hear, change the channel. Because here we don't hold back. We give you the whole road, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, as they say. As Esau in this court system, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We telling you the whole truth. All right, because what we got the whole road. We ate the whole road. We got the 100% truth. All right, that's I believe it was Paul. I have not shunned to show you the whole gospel. All right, not some of it, the full gospel, man. All right, we go from the book of Genesis to Revelation. All right, and give you the true breakdowns. Give you the truth, who you are, who your enemy is. All right, we don't sugarcoat it, because that's not going to benefit anybody. All right, that's what makes the wise versions wise. All right, because they know the importance of that oil and the importance of it not. Because what do you use the oil for in that parable of Matthew 25? To trim the lamps. So what happens when you trim the lamps, man? You don't hide it under a table. You want to let that full light shine, man. You got to trim that lamp, turn that bitch on, and let the light be seen. What the hell is the point of get half full oil, all right? And then you trim the lamp, and you covering it half of the light, man. So it's a dim light. That ain't the spirit to be in, man. Right? If you got that. Get enough oil, man. You gotta when it's time to trim them lamps, you let that light shine, man. Because that's gonna show the difference between the wise virgins and the foolish virgins. Because eventually the foolish virgins, their light's gonna dim out and ultimately completely go out. But the wise virgins, their light's gonna be shining to the end, all right, and then continue to shine when the Lord returns. It's gonna get even brighter when the Lord returns. How about that? Unlimited supply of oil. And that light will never get put out through the spirit and power of yahawah. Alright, so, Lord's will, this was edifying. Take heed to whoever needed to take heed to this. Alright, so with that, shalom.
Alright, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to all you fellow laborers that are kicking this word in sincerity and in faith. Bahasham Yahshai, quadash. The Holy Spirit resting upon me to do this lesson. Because when we're commanded to baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, which in the Hebrew, it's Yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, quadash. And that's what we were sent to do. We were put on the earth to tell the truth. And the truth of the matter is, Esau has lied about, and he's overstated his warrior nature. Because what you're looking at is the National Montfort Point Marine Association. This is the Montfort Marines, which the Montfort Marines were the first Judite Marines. All right, who is a Montfort Point Marine? They are the first African Americans to enlist in the U.S. Marine Corps after President Franklin Roosevelt issued an executive order establishing the Fair Employment Practices Commission in June 1941. All right, the recruits trained at Camp Montfort Point in Jacksonville, North Carolina from August 26, 1942 until the camp was decommissioned on September 9th, 1949. All right, and these Marines, they fought in World War II. And my grandfather, my father's father, he was one of these men. And I've been running into different, military servicemen. And I mentioned, oh yeah, my granddad is a Montfort Marine. That's like it's a big thing. Like I was talking to this Edomite last week, and he said, hey man, your granddad in my eye, he's the hero. But for the longest, these men weren't celebrated. These men weren't acknowledged. Because Esau likes to paint the picture that he was like the great hero who took who took down all these different nations, all these different countries. And really, when you go into it, it was Jacob. All right, it was Judah and the rest of the tribes. The reason he was able to conquer Gad was because of Judites and other Gadites. The reason he was able to take out Issachar was because of other Issacharites. Because our people are the greatest warriors. Our father is a man of war, and he put that spirit on us as well. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and start with that. It's the book of Exodus, chapter 15, verse 3. The Lord Yahawah is a man of war. The Lord Yahawah is his name. That's right. So the Lord Yahawah is a man of war. And guess what? Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Let me go ahead and bring that out. That's why our people are so vehement about fighting and will not stop, man. You see our people out in the streets, all these different gangs. That's because they got that warrior spirit in them. You see Issachar and Judah going at each other. Well, Issachar going at other Issacharites, Judites going at other Judites. Because our people have a warrior spirit on us. It's just we're not using it for righteousness. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, verse 19. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. Right, the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies. All right, so it says the portion of Jacob is not like them. What's the portion of Jacob? Our power, Yahawah. That's our portion. All right, these other nations, they got these idols that they worship, that they bow down to, that they venerate. We have the actual creator of heaven and earth, because like it says in the book of Psalms, the 96th chapter, all the gods of the nations are idols. But the Lord Yahawah, he created the heavens and the earth. All right, the portion of Jacob is not like them. As a matter of fact, let me start at 17 to give some background, to put it in proper context. Every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. Right, a graven image. And that's what these other nations would attribute to their origin story. Or they'll say that they came forth from a stock, from a stone, like them Ishmaelites. Like they venerate the cobblestone. Every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. Right? There's no breath, there's no life in these different idols. They are vanity, the work of errors. In the time of their visitation, they shall perish. That's right, because there's another scripture that says that the Lord, he's going to destroy all the idols out of Babylon. The portion of Jacob is not like them. Right, the portion of Jacob is not like them. Our portion is talking about the Heavenly Father. He's an actual living power. For he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord Yahawah of hosts is his name. That's right. He's the power of hosts, the power of armies, which is why our people have such a warrior spirit on us. And that's why Esau didn't want to let Jake into the military, because he didn't want to give us guns. He didn't want us to be in a situation where we will get to exercise that warrior spirit. Because what happened after World War II? After World War II, after the Korean War, Jake came back to the States and started what? Uprising. The civil rights movement and the black power movement. When you look into it, a lot of those leaders, they were formerly in the military, because they got the opportunity to fight. They was putting people down. They was putting Ammonites down. They was putting other so-called white people down. All right, fighting in the different theaters of World War II, fighting in the Korean War. And so then they came back and were like, look, man, shit, I'm a warrior. You know, I'm a man. Because this whole existence here in Babylon, Esau's been all about what? Beating the manhood out of us. Which, how are you a man? By following the ways of the Heavenly Father. That's how you're a real man. So our people came back and was treated like second-class citizens after being treated like heroes in a lot of instances overseas. But now look what you see. The majority of the military are Israelites, because you can't stop us, man. You can't stop Israel. Hey, like the brother Shemaiah, his YouTube handle was GMS can't stop Israel, and that's true. We are an unstoppable nation. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. That's right. Who is? Jacob. Was Jacob's name was changed to Israel after he what? After he wrestled with the angel, and he was vehement in getting that blessing. And that's how we got to fight. We got to fight. We got to fight for our blessing to inherit our kingdom, or to get our crown. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war, for with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. That's right. So that warrior spirit is going to get placed back on our people. All right, and we're not going to be fighting for the so-called white man, because that was the only opportunity really for our people to fight back then. All right, you gotta sign up for the so-called white man's military, and pretty much prove that you are equal. Now we know that we're actually better than you so-called white people. We're superior to you, and our people are coming to that realization. Even though a lot of our people are in different doctrines, but they understand that having melanin, that puts you at an advantage over the so-called white man. Our people always talk about our musical ability, okay, our physical ability, and how it's superior to these other nations. And you other nations, you're gonna see it, man. You're gonna see it in full force. This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon 5:1. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labors. And that's what the so-called white man has done. Because with the Mumford Point Marines, a lot of people outside of the military, they don't know about this. And these are heroes, and these is like top flight jakes. It was about 20,000 of them, and they went and they recruited like all throughout the country in different so-called black communities, like cream of the crop jakes. And I actually went to a ceremony to commemorate, this is in Florida, to commemorate my grandfather and the other men. And they gave them all, as you can see here, they gave them congressional medals of honor. And they actually gave everybody a congressional medal of honor. And my grandfather actually received 2, because he's a so-called war hero. But they're not going to put him up and say, well, look at this man. This man who served in the military from here to here, and do some big biography on him. But who will they exalt? They'll exalt George Washington, Andrew Jackson, all these scumbags, man. But then on the hush, all right, after posthumously, after my grandfather and them other men, them other soldiers, after they're dead and gone, now you want to commemorate them. You see? But while they were alive, they got treated like trash, like second-class citizens. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labors. And that's what you have done to our people. Our people literally built this country. All the chicken that you like, the liquor, like Jack Daniels. There's a man, Nearest Green, who's a slave, a servant to Jack Daniels. He was the one who actually came up with that recipe. You see? But what happened? He didn't get no credit for it up until now. So now is the time for our people that our people are starting to be recognized for all of our work. Oh, even Trump. Even Trump had to say it. So y'all built this country. I know you don't get the credit for it, but y'all built this country. Trump said that he was at I believe a HBCU 2 or 3 weeks back. Because the truth is coming out. You can't stop the truth. This is 2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 28. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome. And the truth, which had been so long without fruit, shall be declared. That's right, man. And that's what's happening there. The truth is being declared. That really, the so-called African Americans, which is the tribe of Judah, and the rest of the tribes, really are the reason that America was made great. Just like ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt was made great because of who? The Israelites. Just like modern Egypt. And without us, this place would be nothing, man. But because of the curse, what does it say? Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord yahawah thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And I'm gonna read one of the curses. Which when you read these curses, it's clear as day who this is referring to. All right, it's clear that it's referring to the so-called black people who are brought to this side of the world in slavery, in slave ships, and the indigenous peoples that were here. All right, Deuteronomy 28 and I'm trying to find a verse. Bear with me. 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And you see that because you have all these different immigrant groups. They come to this country and they prosper. All right, and a lot of times, where do they go? Where do they set up shop? In the so-called black community. All right, so they're within us, and they get up above us very high, and we come down very low. All right, despite our forefathers, our foremothers being inventors of laundromats. Like when you think of a laundromat now, it's some damn Moabite. But so-called black women came up with those modern inventions. All right, dry cleaning and stuff like that. But you got Moabites, they got the market cornered. You see? That's just one example. The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Yeah, and our people are at a very low state, and we're at the lowest of the low right now. Which is how you know, man, a change got to come. Hey, because there's nowhere to go but up once you at the bottom, man. All right, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Yeah, and that's why our people are, for the most part, what? Employees. All right, which you look up that word employee, it goes back to servant. It tells you in Ecclesiastes, the 10th chapter, I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking upon the earth. And there's actually a statue of that, I believe it's in New York, and it's an Edomite on a horse, and you got a Gadite on one side and the Judite on the other. When I say Gadite, I'm talking about a so-called Native American Indian. And when I say Judite, I'm talking about a so-called African American. Why? Because we're under these curses. Yet now what the Lord is doing, he's beginning to lift the curses off, and he's beginning to put the curses on our enemies that hate us, that has persecuted us. Start with you so-called white people. All right, and it starts with this truth coming out. Yeah, and on Veterans Day, which everybody wants to concentrate on Esau, but really, you go into it, even the Revolutionary War, who was the first man to have his blood shed? It was Crispus Attucks, which he was a Judite, and I believe his mother was a Gadite. So straight up tribesman. Mark 4:22, for there is nothing hid which shall not be manifested, neither was anything kept secret, but that it should come abroad. And that's right, and this truth is coming out. All right, the truth is being revealed. All right, the main people who have made America great are the Israelites. All right, Judah, Gad, Issachar, so on and so forth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. I pray that this lesson was edifying. All the praise, honor, and glory again goes to yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi. And may the Lord bring judgment upon this place, and may the kingdom come soon. And shalom to you.
Here's an example of an Israelite calling himself after a Gentile mind state. So what does this prove? This proves that you had Israelites that called themselves after a Gentile mind state. Now, in the case of this example here, this man knew he was an Israelite, but he called himself after a Gentile mind state to be used as his defense. To be used as his defense. But you had Israelites that called themselves after a Gentile mind state because they didn't know any better. They were scattered among the Gentiles, so they called themselves Gentiles. So what does this prove? It proves that those are the people that the Lord brought his word to, that the Lord opened up salvation to. In other words, the Israelites that were scattered among the Gentiles. This is another edition of the Daily Edification, the Daily Exaltation, and it comes to you through the spirit and power of Yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, quadash. All praises and glory is due. So let's get into it. Here is the Apostle Paul, and the Apostle Paul actually calls himself a Roman. What is a Roman? A Gentile mind state. In other words, a Roman is man's citizenship. It's a Gentile mind state. Okay? This is the book of Acts 22, and I'll start the 24th verse. It says, the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle. The him is the Apostle Paul. And bade that he should be examined by scourging. Another word for scourging is whipping. That he might know wherefore they cried so against him. Now, when you read the story, it was the Jews that came against the Apostle Paul. Basically, they wanted to kill him. So a group of soldiers came down, rescued him from the Jews, and brought him to the castle, where the chief captain figures, for me to get to the bottom of this story, what's going on here, I'm going to whip this man. Okay? So here he's getting ready to whip the Apostle Paul, right? Let's read on. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman? So here the Apostle Paul is calling himself a Roman, which is a Gentile mind state. Let's not forget that Roman is a Gentile mind state. And what does it prove? It proves that Israelites call themselves after a Gentile mind state. Now, in the case of the Apostle Paul, he knew his true nationality, which is a Hebrew Israelite, but you had Israelites that didn't know their true nationality, and they were calling themselves after a Gentile mind state. And that could not be ignored. That's a major piece of the puzzle, man, who the Lord really came for when you're speaking about the Gentiles. He came for the Israelites that were scattered among the Gentiles, calling themselves after a Gentile mind state, to bring them back to the true knowledge of who they are, which is Hebrew Israelites. That's who this truth is for. That's who salvation is for. And that's what vocab Malone cannot understand. Let's read again. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed, meaning be careful what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. But was the Apostle Paul an actual Roman? Was he a Roman? Well, we're going to find out. Then the chief captain came and said unto him, tell me, art thou a Roman? And he said, yeah. So he's admitting he's a Roman. And the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtained I this freedom. And that shows you that being a Roman is man's citizenship, because you can actually buy that. Like this chief captain, which most probably he was a Hebrew Israelite that bought the Roman citizenship, that bought the, what's the word I'm looking for, that bought the privilege of being called a Roman. He actually paid money for that privilege. That's why I just said to the Apostle Paul, with a great sum, meaning a great sum of what? Of money, obtain I this freedom. So to be called a Roman citizen meant freedom. And that idea appealed to a lot of Israelites back then. So what were they becoming? They were becoming Gentiles. They actually paid money to enjoy this the citizenship of being a Roman, which being called a Roman back then came with a lot of privilege, or a lot of privileges. Okay? So, the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, but I was freeborn. Okay? Paul said, I was freeborn. Then straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. So by him using that Roman citizenship, which is a Gentile mind state, he enjoyed the privilege of not being whipped. So that was pretty smart on the Apostle Paul's part. But the big question is, did he know that he's not a Roman? Did he know he was an Israelite? Well, let's find out. Let's find out. The book of Romans, the 11th chapter, the first verse. I say then, have the Most High cast away his people? Who are the Lord's people? The Israelites. God forbid, meaning no. For I also am an Israelite. So how can he be a Roman and an Israelite at the same time? How can the Apostle Paul be a Roman, which he just admitted he was a Roman when he was about to be whipped? He used that for his defense, the privilege of being a Roman. He used that for his defense. But here, he's an Israelite. Here he says he's an Israelite to the Israelites in Rome. Huh? Now, to one who doesn't understand the history, it wouldn't make sense. It would sound like a contradiction, right? But it's not a contradiction. And it proves that you had Israelites calling themselves after a Gentile mind state. The only difference is the Apostle Paul knew he was an Israelite. You had Israelites that didn't know they were Israelites, calling themselves Greeks, calling themselves Romans after a Gentile mind state. Those are the ones who this truth is for. That's what I'm proving in this video. Let's read it again. I say, then, have God cast away his people? God forbid, for I also am an Israelite. That was the true organic nationality of the Apostle Paul, a Hebrew Israelite, an Israelite that spoke Hebrew. And he also spoke Greek too. But his primary language was Hebrew. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin. So the Apostle Paul knew what true nationality he was. But here, back in the book of Acts, he was using that Roman citizenship, which is not a nationality. It's Roman citizenship, or man citizenship rather. He was using that as a defense of not getting whipped, as a privilege of not getting whipped. I mean, who the hell wants to get whipped? Huh? So what does this prove? This proves that you had Israelites calling themselves after a Gentile mind state. That's the proof. So with that, I'm going to end it there. Hopefully you were edified, and it's on to the next one. Shalom for now.
So that just leads everything here as you can see things coming into play, and as it was then, so it is now, because we're at the very end of this, the last leg of the evil empires, that is, of the Edomite empire. So Isaiah chapter 29, going to start in verse 3. And I will camp against thee round about, and I will lay siege against thee with a mount, and I will raise forts against thee. And you're seeing that now. All these nations are coming against Babylon the Great, and getting ready to utterly burn her with fire, because they hate the whore. And thou shalt be brought down, and shalt speak out of the ground. Talking about way of them nuclear missiles come up. And thy speech shall be low out of the dust, and thy voice shall be as one that hath a familiar spirit out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. And this nuclear fire is going to consume everything. Moreover, the multitude of strangers shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the terrible ones shall be as a chaff that passeth away. Yea, it shall be an instant suddenly, because that's how fast these scroll of clouds will be. Thus, when this place is consumed by nuclear fire. Thou shalt be visited of the Lord of hosts with thunder, and with earthquake and great noise, with storm and tempest, and the flame of devouring fire, which is by way of the nuclear missiles. But you're starting to see some of these devouring fires as well. You now have seeing fires in Australia as well. Queensland and New South Wales, as well as, Hollywood burning. We already seen it here in Northern California as well. And all these are orchestrated by the Most High himself, because he sent Esau as a sword after the wicked. The multitude of nations that fought against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her munition, that distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision. Right, because this place, is going to be like as if it never even existed, because once we get Jerusalem back and once we're in the kingdom, this will be a myth, This will be like, a horror story that nobody ever even heard of. It shall be as when a hungry man dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he awaketh, and his soul is empty. Or as when a thirsty man dreameth, and behold, he drinketh, but he awaketh, and behold, he is faint, and his soul hath appetite. So shall the multitude of all nations be that fight against Mount Zion. So again, pretty much, man, a famine's coming worldwide. Fires are going to be burning worldwide. We're seeing it. Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. Yeah, because 2/3 of our people are bugged out, man, and still following the philosophies of Esau. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. That's right, man. You cannot hear us. You cannot see us. You don't understand us. You don't understand anyways when we go out there and we teach. Because, of course, the Most High has put that there. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. And that's just it. There's very few of us that can even decrypt this. This book is encrypted, man. That's why, when you hear an Edomite speak, it doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. Because he doesn't understand it. It's encrypted, man. He doesn't have the decryption keys. Only those decryption keys start with the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and on down. It started with One West and was brought to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and on down. Other than that, this is an encrypted book. They're not going to understand all this. And when we're out there and teaching, a lot of people look at us as protesters, or they just laugh at us like, look at them fools. But you know what, though? We know what's in this because we have the decryption, and to everybody else it's still encrypted. So I hope all this has been edifying. Like everything else, though, I finally have that full interview of Bashar al-Assad, the whole hour interview, and that's going to be on here as well as one more video. But like everything else, I just couldn't get it all in the last video because I tried to, I like to make a culmination of videos like a Roku, if you will, having all the videos that one may have missed or, didn't quite get all of. I try to put them all together, because we need this food. This is food for the elect. So hope all this is edifying. Until next time, barak the yahawah, barak the yahawashi, bahasham quadash, wa abab of all. Barakatam the hopeful elect. Shalom.
Perfect. Okay, so let's just I'll ask the first question, and that would be is 1948 a fulfillment of prophecy, and if so, which prophecy?
You say 1948? Absolutely, definitely would say that.
Could you let me know
right.
which prophecy that's a fulfillment of? And when I say, just for the listeners and the audience, when I mean of the Jewish people going from the North Quarters, meaning Germany, Europe, to Israel. People are not familiar.
The Balfour Declaration.
Yeah, the Balfour Declaration.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question that you just pronounced right there. Are you looking for me to quote scripture as far as returning to Israel, or I mean, there's a lot of claims going out there about stuff.
I mean, yeah, if there's a scripture that actually deals with that being a prophecy, can you name a few off the top?
Well, in particular, Ezekiel chapter 37, for example. Let's see here. I got all this stuff here. Bear with me. It speaks about, I will bring them out of the nations and gather them from the countries, bring them into their own land. I will pass them on the mountains of Israel, and the rabbis and all the settlements in the land. Here we go. In Jeremiah 16, verses 14 through 15. I'm sorry, did you want to read that one first, though? You can check that out if you want first. All right, another one is Jeremiah 16, verses 14 through 15. Let me state what that, basically what I'm quoting that. 14 through 15, the prophet says that the second Israel will be more impressive than the first. So in many regards, it is. The first time Israel was established as a country was after Moses, when he led the descendants of Jacob, typically referred today as Jews, out of Egypt, Israel, where they had been enslaved for 400 years. And they conquered Canaan, we know that, and established Israel about 3,400 years ago. The second time that Israel was established was after that. Been scattered far and wide for a few thousand years. This time the Jews had to return from as far away as the United States, China, Russia, South Africa, Ethiopia, many other places from all over the parts of the world. Return from as far away as the United States, China, Russia, South Africa, Ethiopia, many other places from all over the parts of the world right now. So that would be one in particular. Ezekiel chapter 4, verses 3 through 6. Ezekiel predicted when Israel would actually be reestablished, literally. That could be up for speculation too.
So
I won't hold my candle for it.
The land of the north is up for speculation.
No.
So where is the land of the north? Because I haven't got the answer.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
Where is the land of the north mentioned in Jeremiah 16? There's no cut and dry answer for it?
Yeah, where's the geographical location?
Babylon, right? That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, where's the geographical location?
Babylon, right? That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, where's the geographical location? We're really happy though I just want to let you know we're really looking forward to finding out who the lost tribes are, really open to, and we had a lot to do with the voting in for the Ethiopians to come in. There's like a lot of rumors going around that we love our brothers and we want them home, and I have a lot of friends, dear friends from Ethiopia, and we are really happy to have them. I have a lot of friends, dear friends from Ethiopia, and we are really happy to have them.
שמעתי שהצעיר הזה נרצח, אני הייתי בהלם, אני אמרתי, אני יוצא עכשיו להפגנה הזאת, אין מצב שלו. אמא שלי אמרה לי, אל תלך. אני לא, אנחנו לא באים פה בקטע של אלימות, אנחנו באים פה בקטע של מחאה צודקת.
I have a lot of friends, dear friends from Ethiopia, and we are really happy to have them.
יורד בשכונה, אצלי הורגים אותי במכות. אתה יודע מאיזה גיל זה? 13, מגיל 13 אני מקבל מכות. מה זה?
האנשים צייצו כבר שיפגינו מחר.
I have a lot of friends, dear friends from Ethiopia, and we are really happy to have them.
זה גם המלחמה רק שלנו.
למה?
אני שלחתי את זה בקבוצות של השכבה שלי, כולם אף אחד לא עונה. למה? כי הם חושבים שזה רק בגלל שאני שחורה. הבנת? זה מה שעצוב, זה גם בגלל הצבע.
I have a lot of friends, dear friends from Ethiopia, and we are really happy to have them.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, rawcha, quadash, and double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect. Shalom. Peace to the elect, the men that striving to be of that number. Okay, I want to touch on a video by Sakari and Deacon Hakagayam, I believe that's his name, the deacon. Okay, Hebrew Israelites versus Karaishi or Karaishi, Jewish rabbi debate. Okay, now Hebrew Israelites, meaning they're representing the Hebrew Israelite community. Okay, and this guy, I've known him to, make crazy videos, and I made some back. As the deacon and Sakari, they kind of could have went at him, hard, but they did it right. They asked him questions and kind of set him up, and that's what I saw. Normally we're on the fence, we're on attack, but I think they did a good job because this man really believed in what he believed. So if he believes what he believes, when you ask him the right way, there's no way he can back out of it. It's called a setup, and that's what I saw anyway. Anyway, he was going into the 1948 that going there and to Israel, be declaring a Jewish state in 1948. That was that they claimed to be the people of the Most High. Okay, that God declared them to be the people of God since they were put there in 1948. Now the thing about it, a couple of scriptures came to my mind right off the top, but the thing about it, the Most High is the one that's going to put us there. Okay, it's the Lord's show, and anytime man seeks to deliver himself, he's not a man of the Lord. And if a nation seeks to deliver themselves, they're definitely not the people of God. Okay, the people of God would wait on the Lord. Okay, the people of Yahawah would wait on the Lord. Okay, now he came back with a lot of books from historians. The thing about it, when someone writes a history and someone steals an identity, what they're going to do is they're going to make up doctrine as they go along to fit the puzzle. Okay, so what they're going to do, if they're in charge of the world, you could control any curriculum that comes out of the church or the school. So all of a sudden, we're just Cushite Hamites, or Cushites and Hamites in African nations. And this is why they set up to put that African spell on us to call us African Americans. Okay, when clearly there's people with melanated skin all over the world. They don't have to be African, but they told us Negroes, some of us so-called Negroes and Native Americans, this is who the hell you are. Okay, that's what they told us. So anyway, let's go to the scriptures. Let's see what the scriptures say. 1 Corinthians 17 verse 9. This is going into what the vision of Nathan when he talked to David. Okay, let's go to 17 and 9. First Chronicles, Salakia, 17 and 9. It says, also I would ordain a place for my people Israel, and will plant them. Okay, so the Lord said, hey, I will plant them. Okay, you can't plant yourself. The Lord will do it. That's the power of the Lord. And if you're thinking that you can do it yourself, you have a carnal mind. Okay, it says, and they shall dwell in their place, and shall be moved no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness waste them any more, as at the beginning. So what is this saying? The children of wickedness shall waste them no more. So if you're running the world and you're in charge of the world system and you're in charge of everything according to the world, okay, and in this world that you're running, there's nothing but wars, chaos, sickness, disease, and you claim you're the people of God, then the world should be at rest. And if the children of wickedness is not supposed to waste anybody who's in that land, then there should not be any wars, right? Or the people that are there are not the children of the Most High. So then you got to ask then, who is the children of the wickedness? Okay, who are the wickedness? that is supposed to waste the children of Israel. So is it possible? I mean, it's impossible for some people to believe, because we were such a low level, that we could be the children of God, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, that we could be the children of God. Well, look, Jeremiah 17:4 says, "Thou shalt discontinue from thine heritage." You got some of these people who claim they kept their heritage. They're keeping the laws, so to speak. They don't keep the laws, but the Shabbat, they're trying to do, keep some laws according to God. The people of God would not have known the laws. They would not known anything about the heritage of the Most High. The Most High set up for these people. So how is it that these are the people of God? Okay. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to verse 11. "And it shall come to pass, when thy days be expired, that thou must go to be with thy fathers, that I will raise up thy seed after thee, which shall be of thy sons, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build me up a house, and I will establish a throne forever." His throne forever. Is the Most High one that should lie? The Most High is not a liar. He said in Isaiah 55, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither your ways are my ways." Okay? So as heaven is above, I'm just paraphrasing. And the rain comes down on the earth or whatever, so is my ways higher than your ways. And the Lord said his word should not return to him void. Okay? Goes on to say, "But I will settle him in thy house and in my kingdom," okay, "forever, and his throne shall be established forevermore." Okay? His throne will be established forevermore. Let's go to 13. "I will be his father, and he shall be my son, and I will not take mercy away from him." Okay? And it says, "And as I took it from him that was before thee." Okay? So it goes on to say, according to all these words, that according to all these division, so did Nathan speak unto David. So the bottom line is, at the end of it all, if these were the people of the Most High, as this guy claims, he would have not had to put himself there in 1948. Okay, the people of the Most High would be in rulership of the world. Okay, and the world would be at peace according to the laws. Okay, there wouldn't be no fake money. There would be no GMO foods. Okay, you wouldn't see any of this stuff. You would see marriages righteously. Okay, you would see righteous relationships. You wouldn't see Jerry Springer talk shows with all kinds of sicknesses, man. You wouldn't see this stuff. Look at the parades that's going over in Tel Aviv. You wouldn't see that. But this guy is talking about he's also talking about the messianic age is not here yet. Something like that. The messianic age is coming. That's crazy. That's crazy. The messianic age. So really what you're doing is throwing yahawashi aside, because this is the so-called messianic age, man. Yahawashi still exists. What are they talking about? Everything that yahawashi is speaking of in the book of Matthew, even in the Old Testament that he spoke of, is still happening today and has happened. So what messianic age, man? These are the things when you start bringing doctrine and making up things to go along to fit a doctrine. I didn't want to go too much on this. I was just making a point about that. Let's go to Isaiah 14:1. Just real quick, I just wanted to point. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them. And some people think that's heathens, that's other Israelites. Okay? And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. You're going to have people that don't even look like Israelites. And they're going to understand, hey, I'm an Israelite. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord. Okay? For servants and handmaids. Has that happened yet? Okay? Now they can look at this and say, well, that's what we're doing. But it should be done under righteousness if you were the people of the Most High. And they shall take them captives who captives they were. Okay? So we were the captives of them. And they shall rule over their oppressors. Okay? And it goes on to say, it gets better. Verse 3, Isaiah 14:3. And it shall come to pass that in the day, hold on. It shall come to pass, okay, in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage. So our slavery that happened here in America, I guess that was nothing. We were just a bunch of Cushite Gentiles, okay, that was set up by these leaders to spread the gospel through a curriculum through these churches that look just like the courthouse to tell us we're nothing but Gentiles. They didn't even have the nerve to tell us who the hell we was, even if we were. You know, if they believed that, they never told us that in the Christian church. But when we brought up questions about it, they automatically said those people in Israel are real Jews. Just because somebody live in a house don't make it their house. Okay? Just because you see somebody driving a car don't make it their car. Just because you see somebody wearing some shoes don't make it their shoes. There is a thing called thievery. This is crazy, man. Okay? From thy sorrow and from thy fear and from thy hard bondage wherein thou hast been made to serve, that thou shalt take up his proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased from the golden city? Okay? The Lord had broken the staff of the wicked and of the scepter of the rulers, man. You know? This is crazy. He who smote the people in wrath and continual stroke, he that ruled their nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. That's pretty much it. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against thee. Hell from beneath is moved from thee to meet thee at the coming of the stereth of the dead for thee. Even all the chief ones of the earth it has raised up from their thrones, all the kings of the nations. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go in that if they were the chosen people of the Most High, right? There wouldn't be no hell on earth right now, man, because this would be a joyous event for the people of the God that sit their people in their land. The Lord is not going to sit us in our land and then say, wait on the messianic age. What kind of madness is that? That's all I have on that. Shalom.
I'm Afshin Ratansi. We're at the Presidential Palace in Damascus. Welcome to a RT International World Exclusive. I'm with the President of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. Mr. President, thanks for granting us an interview. I've got to ask to start off with, why grant an interview now when you haven't done for a year and a half?
You're most welcome in Syria. The events in the world in general, in the region and in Syria after the Turkish invasion has brought Syria front and center once again. This is one reason. The second one, I think the public opinion in the world, and especially in the West, has been shifting during the last few years. They know that their officials has told them so many lies about what's going on in the region, in the Middle East, in Syria, in Yemen. They know there's a lie, but they know what the truth. So I think it's time to talk about this truth. Third, I made so many interviews with Western media outlets. They don't try to get the information. They try to get a scoop. They don't try to be objective, to bring the audience what's happening. in the world. That's why I stopped doing interviews for 4 years.
Well, okay. Well, the journey from Damascus airport, we saw reconstruction, but how many civilians, how many soldiers have been killed, wounded, or displaced from your country in the past, since 2011?
The stability that you saw during the last 24 hours in Damascus since you arrived to Damascus is the result of the sacrifice of more than 100,000 Syrian soldiers who are martyred or wounded. So many lives, and of course, let alone the thousands or maybe tens of thousands of civilians or innocents who have been killed by martyrs, by executions, by being kidnapped and killed later or disappeared. Their families still waiting till now. So there was a lot of sacrifice in the face of those terrorists. That's why you see this stability and the reconstruction.
Countries that have supported you include Iran, of course, Russia. I mean, I want to get on in a bit to the British and American de facto backing for ISIS, Daesh, and Al-Qaeda in your country. But what would you say to a Russian family that had lost a Russian soldier who had risked and had sacrificed their life for a dictator, for a Middle East dictator? What would you say to them as to why Vladimir Putin should be sending in soldiers to help your government?
You mentioned a very important point. Even in Syria, no one would die for a person. People would die, especially in en masse, for cause. And this cause is defending their country, defending their existence, their future. Let alone somebody coming from another country to die for a person, whether he's a dictator or whatever you want to call him. So this is not realistic. This is again the logic that somebody will come from because the President Putin sent him to die for another person. Or even President Putin to put all the interests of his country for one person. This is against the logic. Actually, Russia, according to what they said, their officials, I mean President Putin, Lavrov and the others, they are defending their interests in different ways. One aspect, if they defend or if they fight terrorism in another country, whether it's Syria or any other country in the region, that will defend the Russian people, because terrorism and its ideology has no borders. They don't see political borders. It's one let's say one arena. The whole world is one arena for the terrorism. Secondly, they implement and they adopt the international law. According to their point of view, this international law, if it's implemented, it's in correlation with their interests, with their national interests. So implementing the international law around the world will help the interest of the Russian people. So what they've been doing is in accordance with their national interest, with the global stability, and with the Syrian interest and Syrian stability.
Now you know that in media in NATO countries, this country, your government, you personally, are synonymous with chemical weapons attacks. Let's just go back to one in 21st of August 2013 in Ghouta. Did your government drop chemical weapons on Ghouta on that date, 21st August 2013?
The funny thing about that date is the same date where the first delegation that wants to investigate, the international delegation that came to Syria to investigate the incident, arrived to Damascus, which is only a few kilometers from this place. And logically, the Syrian army, if we support that he has chemical weapon, he wants to use it, he wouldn't use it at that day. This first. Second, they talked about 200 civilian killed. If you use chemical weapons, you may kill tens of thousands in such area where people living very close to each other. I mean, it's crowded area. Third, that incident only existed in the mind of the Western officials. It's the narrative that was the pretext to attack Syria. That's what happened. They didn't offer any tangible evidence to prove that there was such attacks. And there were many reports that has refuted that report or those allegations. So it was only allegation. Never ever the Syrian army used chemical weapons before he handed over all his arsenals to the international committee.
Of course, you took the decision then to invite the OPCW in to remove chemical weapons or to...
Actually, when there were such allegations about the Syrian army
in 2014.
Sorry?
You authorized OPCW monitors in 2014 to come
Actually,
in.
we invited them to come. We didn't authorize, we invited them to come because we told them you should come and should investigate because we are sure, 100% sure that these are allegations. But of course, the delegation not always unbiased, as you know. They are mostly biased.
Well, I mean, the present OPCW head, Fernando Arias, he may have his own problems with whistleblowers now.
Yeah.
There is no doubt, though, that Ahmet Uzumku, he was the Director General of the OPCW who monitored the destruction here. He said there were gaps, uncertainties, discrepancies in your OPCW monitored destruction of chemical weapons here in this country.
Gap in our reports.
Yeah.
Why don't they show it? Now it's been since 2013 we've been hearing the same allegations. Couldn't they prove it after 6 years? And every time they say Syria has used chemical weapons, is it possible to be under this precise, let's say, supervision by the whole Western world, and we're going to use it again and again? This is not rational. I mean, the whole story. We don't need it. We are advancing. I mean, every time they talk about using the chemical weapons, it was when we advance, not when we lose. I mean, even militarily, you may use, if you want to use such weapons, I'm not talking about the Syrian army because we don't have it anymore, but logically, you can use it when you're losing ground, not when you're advancing.
So you deny the use in Jobar, Sheikh Massoud, Sarakib, in the area of Aleppo. You presumably deny Khan Sheikhoun, 4th of April 2017. All of these, you deny the use of chemical weapons by the Syrian government.
Every story was nothing more than allegation. The one who said there was use of chemical weapon, he's the one who should prove his story. He's the one who should offer evidences that it's been used.
Well, the OPCW did lead Britain and the United States and France to believe they needed to bomb your country on the basis of their report.
To believe, but believe is one thing and bringing evidence is another thing. So we are talking about evidence. What the evidence that they have to prove their story? Nothing. They have nothing.
Any truth in the rumors, arguably on your side, saying video evidence has been manipulated and that rebels were using chemical weapons via the Saudi Arabian government, and chemical weapons were indeed used, but by the so-called rebels?
Yeah, it's on the YouTube, you can see it. I mean, they staged play, full play, where somebody play the role of a victim in many incidents, not only with the chemical weapons, even with the bombardments. They stage play that somebody is being the victim, then at the end of the shooting, he's a normal person, he'll stand up and go move normally. You can see it on YouTube. It's very clear. We can offer you this evidence.
But there's no other evidence beyond that, because the White Helmets, supported by the British Foreign Office government, recently been given extra funding by the Trump administration. They claim their videos are absolutely true, and that in fact the people who are making those videos saved 150,000 lives in your country up to 2018.
Again, it's very simple to see the same faces of those angels, the white helmets. The same face of the same one in the white helmets was a fighter with Al-Qaeda. You can see him, the images are very clear. The same one who was being beheading or cutting head, and one of them was being eating the heart of a soldier. I mean, this is very common to see on the internet. The evidence, I mean, if no one in this region believed the stunt, the PR stunt of the white helmets. They are offshoot of al-Nusra.
Well, the UK state-mandated BBC, Amnesty International, they're alleging your government killed 11,000 people using so-called barrel bombs from 2012. That would be a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2139. And indeed, Human Rights Watch is pointing to satellite imagery. You're talking about YouTube videos, saying they're fake videos. These are some of NATO nations' biggest NGOs and broadcasters.
No war is a good war. This is self-evident truth. You always have victims in any war, but to talk about an army or a state to go and kill civilians and its own people, this is not realistic for a simple reason. The war in Syria was about capturing the hearts of the people, and you cannot capture the heart of the people by bombarding them. The Syrian army was fighting the terrorists. Whether there's a side fire that affected some civilian, that could have happened, and you can have investigations. But how could the Syrian people support their state and their president and their army if they are killing them?
Was the only way to regain East Aleppo, did your commanders or you personally authorize the only way to get rid of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Daesh, arguably backed by Britain and the United States, the only way to get rid of them was aerial bombardment?
We definitely, and we succeeded. In some areas, we captured the area without war. We made negotiations with those groups, and they left that area, and then we entered.
But you've seen the pictures, and you presumably say those pictures are true, of the destruction in East Aleppo. Was that really the only way to defeat Al-Qaeda, ISIS-linked groups?
Those groups in eastern Aleppo used to bombard the civilians on daily basis and killed hundreds of thousands of people in Aleppo. So the mission of the army and the mission of the state is to protect those civilians from those terrorists. How can we do that without attacking the terrorists?
Well, that's not shown on media in NATO nations, I should add, in your defense. But what about the use of double tap strikes by the Syrian and the Russian Air Force, where you bomb a part of East Aleppo and then emergency workers come and you bomb again?
There are a lot of misleading narrative in the West, just to show that the Syrian army is intentionally killing the civilians without no reason, and to show that those that they call them like white helmets or any other hospital which is headquarters for the terrorists, they say that the Syrian army is only attacking the humanitarian facilities in order for the civilians to suffer. Actually what happened is the opposite, that those civilians fled those areas and came to the government side in every place, not only in eastern Aleppo. Those people now, if you go to eastern Aleppo, they still live in those areas under the supervision of the government. Why didn't we kill them? Why didn't they fled to Turkey? This is in itself refute the Western narrative.
But as I said, Raid Saleh, the head of the British-backed White Helmet, spoke on my program and said, they are just a humanitarian organization. They are not terrorists at all, despite what you and the Russian government allege.
But you have pictures, you have videos, you have proofs. So it's not we don't have any allegations. How did we know? Through their images. We can offer you all these evidence. We have evidence. It's very clear.
I mean, going back a little to the first demonstrations in Daria in Damascus, there was a famous, again, BBC state-mandated British media program in which they interviewed, of all people, Walid Jumlat of the Druze in Beirut, who said to camera that you authorized the killing of the 13-year-old Hamza al-Khatib. Is that true? And that they then interviewed a succession of people saying the mistakes you made led to what happened. It wasn't the British and American backing of Al-Qaeda and ISIS Daesh in your country.
At the very beginning, during the demonstrations, during the first few days, we lost 5 policemen by shooting, by bullets. How could we talk about peaceful demonstrations while you have policemen killed by...
But how could you authorize the killing of a 13-year-old?
Yeah, I'm just starting from the very beginning. So from the very beginning, I mean, the word peaceful demonstrations wasn't correct. There was shooting, and you cannot tell who's shooting at the police and who's the one who's shooting at the civilians, because in most of the incidents that time, the police didn't have even machine gun or pistol.
Except this child was tortured.
No, that's not true. He's not. We never had
the cigarette burns in his body.
He was killed. No, he was killed. He was killed, and there was allegation that he was tortured. He wasn't tortured. He was killed and was taken to the hospital. And I met with his parents. They know the real story. This is only in the West, in the Western outlets, in the Western media outlets. This is not the story in Syria. So that's why I'm surprised about those stories that are completely disconnected from our reality. He's somebody who died. How did he die? Who shot? Nobody knows. It was chaos. When you have chaotic demonstrations, anyone could infiltrate that demonstration and start shooting in different directions and kill policemen in order to retaliate, or vice versa.
So have you heard of Anwar Raslan and Ed Al-Gharib, who've been arrested in Germany? The Germans alleging something called barak 251, one of your torture units, to torture demonstrators?
We don't have torture unit. We don't have torture policy in Syria. Why do you use the torture for? That's the question. Why? Is it psychological situation? You just want to torture people? This is kind of sadism? Why to torture? You need informations? We have all the information. The majority of the Syrian people supported their government. That's why we've been here for 9 years, in spite all of this aggression by the West and by the petrodollar in the Arab region. That's why this is the only reason. So why do you torture the people? That's the question. It's not policy. If you talk about individual incidents, this is only individual incident that could happen by anyone for revenge, for any other reason. That could happen anywhere in the world. But we don't have such policy. We never believe in that torture could make your situation better as a state. Very simple. So we don't use it now.
What did you make of it when the British government sent the Royal Navy to intercept an Iranian vessel? They said, the Iranian government said it was with heating oil for Syria. Are the sanctions from the European Union going to hit the poorest people in Syria this winter?
Exactly. First of all, this is piracy. This is piracy by the United Kingdom regime. And this is the core meaning of the word regime, because regime and piracy and gangs is something similar. Second, yes, they wanted to affect the people in Syria. Why? Because those people expected to rise against their government during the different stages of the war, but they didn't. They were supposed to be supporting the terrorists, the moderate rebels, the angels of white helmets, but the people didn't. They stood with their government, so they have to suffer. They have to pay the price. First of all, they have to learn the lesson that you should stood with their agenda. Second, this is maybe the last-ditch attempt in order to push them to be against the government. But they tried it last winter, they tried it before, and they didn't work because the people knew the whole story and they knew where their interest lies.
People in the global south, you and your government ministers may think it's natural to accuse NATO governments of supporting Al-Qaeda, of ISIS. But viewers watching this interview in those NATO countries may think this is ridiculous. Why would the British government say, or the Obama government, because I suppose Donald Trump arguably has suddenly realized what may have been going on. Why do you think they wanted to support Al-Qaeda and ISIS-Daesh?
Why? Because of the facts. These facts started with the fact that the American officials, before anyone else, said verbally with their tongue, like John Kerry, like Hillary Clinton and many others, when they talked about their role in supporting Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan in order to be a tool against the Soviet Union that time. They said this is their modus operandi. It's not something we invented.
But they saw 9/11. Why would they make the same mistake again?
Because the American policy in general depends on trials and errors. They invaded Afghanistan, they got nothing. They invaded Iraq, they got nothing. And they started to invade other countries, but in different ways. They change the way. The problem in the United States now, they fight a survival war from their point of view, because they are losing their hegemony. So they wanted to fight the Russian, the Iranian, the Syrian, whoever said no. Even their allies, they said no, like the Western government, they will fight with them. They need tools. They noticed that in Iraq, it didn't work by sending their army. They lost a lot. And they paid the price even inside the United States. So it's much easier for them to send a proxy. So Al-Qaeda is a proxy against the Syrian government, against the Russian government, and the Iranian government. That's why they've been using this. But you have evidence. ISIS, how did ISIS rose suddenly in 2014? Out of nowhere, out of nothing, in Iraq and Syria at the same time, with American armaments. It's very clear. How could they smuggle millions of barrels of oil to Turkey under the supervision of the American aircraft? How? Because the American wanted to use them against the Syrian army. So it's not something we said. The Americans said that, and the facts said the same story.
But while all this has been going on, you have been talking with international bodies and different interlocutors. What do you make of the UN envoy, Staffan de Mistura, saying, in quotations in the past few days, having really fought against what happened in Aleppo, Idlib, in Daria, I could not be the one that is shaking Assad's hand and saying, Malesh. These are the people you were talking to as neutral observers. Looking back on it, were any of these people neutral?
He cannot be in that position if he's neutral, because the United States will only accept puppets. This is their behavior.
But you did shake hands with them.
And he asked later to meet with me, and I said no. But so he wanted to shake my hand. He wanted to. He was biased. That's why he failed. He was implementing the American agenda maybe in a little bit smarter way, but it didn't work because he was biased. That's why.
And what is this Geneva process? There have been some reports that the Syrian delegation was backed by your government, but not representing the Syrian government. What exactly is this Geneva process? Post-conflict? I'm not even sure it's called that.
It's American ploy. It's about gaining in politics what you couldn't get through the demonstration first and through the terrorist later. So you can get it through political process. That's why, again, it didn't work. That's why Geneva failed, because it was about toppling the government through interim body, let's say, doesn't matter what is it. Then change the government peacefully and control Syria like they did in many other countries. That's why Geneva failed, and that's why we went to Sochi with the Russian. That's why Sochi now is working. We had this delegation last month, and they started last week negotiating the constitution.
So when Donald Trump announces...
Sorry, are you asking about this Geneva or about...
Oh yeah, I was talking about this Geneva.
I should talk about this Geneva. This Geneva is only the venue, the place, the geography, but I mean, the political process is still Sochi. It's Sochi. Doesn't matter where we convene or where we start the negotiation. It's Sochi.
But of course, in mainstream Western media, in NATO nations, it's Geneva, not Sochi. And do you believe that this curious story that the Russians are saying that the USA is stealing $30 million of oil a month from northern Syria, is this a Trump bargaining chip in the Geneva talks? Why would a net oil exporter like the USA be interested in $30 million of oil a month?
No, since ISIS started smuggling Syrian oil and looting Syrian oil in 2014, they had two partners, Erdogan and his coterie, and the American, whether CIA or others. So what Trump did is just announced the truth. He's not talking about something new. Even when some of the Kurds started looting the Syrian oil, the American were their partners. So it's about money and it's about oil. And that's what Trump said recently, but it's not new at all. It's not related to the talks at all.
But arguably, why are you not more angry? Because obviously that would be a violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention on pillaging of a country's resources.
Of course we are angry. Every Syrian is angry, definitely. This is looting, but there's no international order, actually. And there's no international law. But this is not new, to be frank, not only during the war. The Americans always try to loot other countries in different way, regarding their not only oil or money or financial resources. They loot their rights, political rights, every other right. That's their historical role, at least after World War II. So it's not something new. It's not strange or disconnected from their previous policy, but if from time to time it takes different shape, and this shape, looting the oil, the starkest way of the American policy, looting the rights of other people.
Was a big part of the war fossil fuel pipeline access to Europe from the Middle East that would cut Russian pipeline access to the European Union?
This is very realistic, but some say that they ask the president to open the Syria for a pipeline, south-north, and he said no for that, and actually that didn't happen. This is not true. But there was a pipeline that's coming east-west from Iran, through Iraq, Syria to the Mediterranean. If this one was a reason, it could be. If the war is about the oil as a factor, yes, this is likely to be. But this is not the only factor. Don't forget that there's a war between United States and the rest of the world. You have now, we're talking about tectonic shifting and earthquakes, because the world order after World War II has been expired, especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union and one polar world. It doesn't work anymore. So you have rising power like Russia and China and India and other countries. The United States doesn't accept any partner in leading the world, even UK, even France, even other big country. I wouldn't call them great power, because this is another meaning. They're not great anymore. They don't accept partners. That's why they are fighting now. So the war in Syria is a microcosm of the world war, let's say World War III, but without armament, through proxies. You have different factors. The oil is one factor of the oil, not because of the oil. I don't believe just because of this.
Of course, some might say that Syria, historically, your father and yourself have always supported the Palestinians and the UN resolutions governing the Palestinians. Yeah. Do you see Israel, which after all many believe to be a nuclear weapons of mass destruction power, as influencing policy in the European Commission, in the State Department, in the Pentagon?
Definitely. Israel is our enemy. They occupy our land, and it's self-evident, intuitive, to be part of anything that could happen against Syria, any plan, any instigation, directly through their relation with the terrorists. And Netanyahu was visiting the terrorists who had been treated in their hospitals.
You believe those pictures are true? The Israeli government was directly supporting Al-Qaeda-linked and ISIS-Daesh-linked militants trying to destroy your government?
The Israeli published these photos formally as a news. It wasn't our allegations. Second, they support, and every time the Syrian army advanced against those al-Nusra terrorists in the south, Israel used to bombard our troops. And whenever we advanced somewhere else in Syria, their airplanes started committing airstrikes against our army. That's what's happening. So the link is very clear. There was correlation between the Israeli operations and the terrorist operations. First through the terrorists directly, second through the Americans, third through the Europeans. They have one agenda and one interest, and before the war, not only during the war. So it's very normal and expected and likely that the Israeli should be part of all of this.
Of course, while Britain, the United States, European powers may have stopped trying to aerially bombard your country to destroy your government, the big news in the NATO nation media was the al-Baghdadi assassination by the 75th Ranger Regiment in Idlib province. Is it your understanding, going on from what you just said, that al-Baghdadi is essentially trained by the United States under torture in Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq?
Yeah, he was in their prisons, under their supervision. And the Americans were the one who released al-Baghdadi. So they wouldn't release him without any role. And suddenly Baghdadi became al-Khalifa of the Muslims in the world, as he signed himself. He was prepared by the Americans to play that role. And we don't believe this recent story of killing him. Maybe he's killed, but it's not about what they mentioned. The whole story was about whitewashing the American hand from being hand glove of the terrorists during the last, not only few years, but during the last decade. This is like in the fiction movies when they erase your memory. They wanted to erase the memory of their public opinion that we were, or they were, in direct link with those terrorists, especially Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Al-Nusra. When Saddam Hussein was captured, they showed him. When he was executed, they showed the event of execution. When his children killed, they showed their body. The same with Al-Qaddafi. Why didn't they show us the body of bin Laden? Why didn't they show us the body of al-Baghdadi? Just a fake story about being against terrorists and this very sophisticated operation. Maybe he's killed because he's expired as person. They needed somebody else. And maybe they wanted to change the whole name of ISIS into another name to bring ISIS as moderate organization to be used again in the market against the Syrian government.
I'll get on how the media will react to that. But of course the Trump administration thanked your government when it came to the assassination of Baghdadi.
We're not part of any operation.
You're not in dialogue with Donald Trump?
At all. There's no relation between any institution in Syria and any institution in the United States.
Nor with EU representatives at these recent Geneva talks?
No one at all. No one at all. We don't have any relation with most of the Western countries who play a direct role against Syria.
I know you're antagonistic with the NATO nation Turkey, but Mr. Erdogan, and arguably yourself, must be aware that Western policy is liable for blowback into the European Union. What have you made of, say, European Union government's response to the possible outflow of British ISIS-Daesh fighters back into the European Union? How dangerous is it to be in London today, or Paris, or Berlin?
Actually, the relation between Erdogan and the EU is two ways. They hate him, but they want him. They hate him. They know that he's fanatic Islamist. They know this. And they know that he's going to send them those extremists or maybe terrorists.
He took in many refugees from your country.
Many of them from Syria, and some of them, no, they're coming from different areas in the world, not only Syria, actually. But the majority are Syrian. Not all of them are extremists. not the majority of them are terrorists. Actually, most of the Syrians who left to Turkey, they left because of the terrorism in Syria, because of the bombardment of the terrorists and so on. So they don't want him, but at the same time they fear him. But from the other side, let's say that sending those Syrian and other refugees is dangerous. The most dangerous on Europe is to support the terrorists in Syria. This is the most dangerous part. So this is hypocrisy. How can you fear those few millions? The majority of them are moderates and they have few terrorists, while you support those terrorists directly in tens of thousands at least, and maybe hundreds of thousands in Syria, and you don't fear that they're going to go back to your country.
Well, the British government takes away the citizenship of British ISIS Daesh fighters, arguably.
Yeah.
Okay, but then presently the fighting in Idlib, Russian warplanes in action there. How far away are we from reintegrating Idlib? Will there be an amnesty for these people that have tried to overthrow your government?
Yeah. Militarily, it will not take a long time if we start to liberate Idlib. But actually what we do, our plan, is to give chance for the civilians to leave. And that's what's happening. But they've been actually not living freely toward the government. They've been smuggled. They've been, coming like leakage. Few families every week, let's say, because they could be killed if they want to leave.
Southwards or westwards towards
No,
Europe?
southward, toward the government. It's actually southward or eastward. This is very important for us to give chance for those civilians to leave in order not to be harmed.
But there are airstrikes backed by Russia and your military forces. Reports in the past few days of civilians dying.
No,
How soon is Idlib going to be reintegrated?
Those airstrikes are again the terrorist facilities, very simply. But in the
humanitarian organizations.
Yeah, exactly. In the Western narrative, in the Western media, the narrative during the 9 years of the war, that every Syrian or let's say Russian airstrike should be again the civilian and the humanitarian facility. Unfortunately, according to them, our bullets and missiles and bombs, they can only kill civilians. They don't kill militants. Always, as you see. So no, this is against part of the Western narrative, and I think just discussing this narrative is just a waste of time. Again, this is against our interest. Our interest lies in killing the terrorists in order to protect the civilians, not leaving those civilians, innocents, under the supervision of the terrorists and being killed by the terrorists.
Okay, but then what is the nature of your agreement with the Syrian Defense Forces? There are so many different names of organizations in your country. Many of them are the white hat good guys in NATO nation media. Is there power sharing going on? Who are the Syrian Defense Forces?
With the SDF. No, it's about regaining the control, full control of the territory wherever the Syrian army move, and bring with it the services of the government. So it has full sovereignty on those territories. But this agreement is about the SDF withdrawing 30 kilometers southward in order to remove the pretext of the Turks to invade Syria. So it's let's say we are in transitional period because they are going to keep their armaments now. But we invited them to join the Syrian army. Some of them said no. The last few days, some of them said yes, we are ready to join the army. So we don't know what's going to happen yet. But we invited them to join the army in order to have a normal situation as it used to be before the war, when the law prevailed and the state prevailed, nobody else.
And as for Kurdish forces, are they just tired after so many years? I mean, your understanding is they took money from the United States, the CIA. Now you're welcoming them back to work with
First of all, the SDF is not only Kurds. It's a mix of Kurds and Arabs and others. Second, When we talk about the SDF, the Kurds in the SDF, they represent part of the Kurds. The majority of the Kurds, they had good relations with the government, and the majority of the Kurds support the government. But this part, which is called the PYD, is the one who's been supported by the Americans publicly, their armament, their money. They smuggled oil together. They are American agents, to be frank. Most of them. I wouldn't say all of them. I don't know all of them. But their policy during the last few years is to invite the American to stay, to be angry when the American wants to leave, and to say we don't want to join the Syrian army recently.
Aren't you saying exactly what Mr. Erdogan would say to me about the SDF?
About them. Actually, Erdogan has his own agenda, which is two parts. His own agenda as Muslim Brotherhood, and the American agenda as a puppet. So it's two parts, but they work in tandem, these two agendas. But at the same time, those group of PYD gave him the excuse and the reason to invite Syria. That doesn't mean his invasion is legal. It's illegal in every sense of the word. But they gave him the pretext because he's been announcing for years that he wanted to invade the northern part of Syria, and he wanted to clean that area from the terrorists, and he mean the PYD. They kept give him this excuse. That's what happened. That's why they were to be blamed, but Erdogan is invader.
Okay, but don't you see how NATO, some people in NATO powers may think the one thing we do not want is peace between Ankara and Damascus.
Of course.
And you are participating in that divide and rule system that will have been designed in Western capitals. Yeah. No chance of any meetings with Mr. Erdogan?
With him, it's not raised. I mean, to meet with him. And I don't think while somebody is occupying your land will be the preferred one to meet with. We had some few meetings.
You negotiate with your enemies, not your friends.
Yeah, we are, but not with Erdogan, not me with him, no. It's on the security levels. It happened through the Russians. I mean, it was a tripartite meeting. It happened 2 or 3 times. It led nowhere. So we're not against the principle to negotiate with the enemies, especially when we don't consider the Turks as enemies. The Turks people are our neighbors, and we have a common history. We cannot make them enemies. The enemy is Erdogan and his policy and his country. To be against those groups in Turkey and in Syria, that doesn't mean that we see eye to eye in other aspects, especially after he invaded Syria publicly and formally.
You see, countries that have taken policy decisions like Syria, and I mentioned the Palestinians, I mentioned historic support for what are seen as liberation movements in the global south, they tend not to take up neoliberal economics. Last time I was here, all the talk in Damascus, amongst your ministers in Damascus, they were talking about privatization. They were talking about elites in Syrian society, educated in business schools, in Harvard, in the West. Is that not the start of the Syrian conflict? When you started to implement neoliberal privatization plans, destroying the fabric of this society?
Yeah. Actually, there was a debate about privatization, and as a government, and as a state in general, we refused it. Even the unions in Syria, the majority refused the neoliberal policies because we know that it's going to destroy the poor. That was before.
But everyone was talking about it here in 2009.
We moved the steps toward liberation, but we still have public sector. Till this moment, actually, who protected the economy in Syria and the services is the public sector. Without the public sector, we wouldn't have survived this war. The role of the public sector, because we are a socialist government anyway. So we couldn't. No, actually, we still have public sector, and we still support the poor. We still have subsidies of bread, of oil, of schools, everything nearly free. Education is free in Syria. So we haven't changed that policy, but we opened the doors more for the private sector. So you cannot call it liberalization. You cannot call it.
It's a coincidence the conflict hit at that time, just after you were opening up the markets.
No, it wasn't.
Arguably to corruption, more corruption.
No, there was, let's say, explanation for the reason of the conflict. It doesn't have anything to do with this. It doesn't have anything. They said because there was 4-year drought, and the people become poor. No,
the climate change.
No, this is not the reason. This is not correct. These are explanations, just theoretical. In reality, the problem started when the money of Qatar came to Syria, and we had contact with many of the laborers and told them, why don't you come to your workshop? And they said, in 1 hour, we take as we take in 1 week. It was very simple. They paid them $50 at the very beginning, then later $100 a week, which has enough for him to live without work. So it was much easier for him to join the demonstration. After that, it was much easier for them to take them to war, having armaments and shooting. And before that, we had very important...
I'm sure the Qatari government would deny that.
Of course, definitely.
I mean, because it was presented at the time somewhat bizarrely from anyone arguably who knows about the Arab world as a continuation of the Arab Spring from the self-immolation of Bouazizi in Tunisia. That is connected to this conflict, the Arab Spring, or is that?
Of course, there's interaction in this region because they know the same culture, the same background, the same circumstances. Somehow, not completely. Some of the demonstrations at the very beginning were peaceful, to be frank. Not every demonstration were infiltrated by militants. No, that's not true. In some areas, yes. Some people wanted to go because they wanted to improve their situation. Some people, they have their own ideas about improving, let's say, the political system, more freedom, more different slogans they used in those demonstrations. So that was mainly by the influence of what happened in other countries, like in Ukraine. But that's not what it continued. That's why the same people that I'm talking about, they stopped participating in the demonstration where the shooting started and the extremists started infiltrating, especially the Muslim Brotherhood, started leading the demonstrations. Why? With Allahu Akbar and using religious slogans in order to give this religious and sometimes sectarian mantle, to give it to put this mantle on the demonstration.
Something like that could be happening in Lebanon?
Lebanon is a sectarian country. We all know that because they have sectarian constitution. In Syria, we don't have sectarian constitution, so it didn't work.
But I meant the outside influences. Should Lebanon...
of course, no one will leave spontaneous demonstration to be spontaneous. But where will it go? That depends on the awareness of the people.
I've got to ask about reconstruction. Some people saying you're going to be too dependent on China, on Iran. The estimate is what, $230 billion. I don't know how they calculate these things.
Yeah.
You expect now the diaspora to return and there's going to be massive reconstruction. Yeah. Is that what's going to happen now?
Not very soon, because you know there's embargo in Syria, and the American tried hard during the last 2 years to not allow any individual, not only companies, who wants to invest in Syria to come. They said you're under embargo right away. So many capitals fear coming to Syria because of that embargo. But it's not the biggest problem. For the human resources we have, human resources enough to build our country. We don't need any human resources. We can build it gradually. So I wouldn't worry about this embargo, but definitely friendly country like China, Russia, and Iran will have priority in this rebuilding.
Not European Union countries.
Every country who stood against Syria will not have chance to be part of this reconstruction.
No British trade deal.
Definitely not.
Do you think actually, and it has been raised, that the return of terrorists, as you call them, mass immigration that occurred after the Libya war, after the Syria war, they affected Brexit? Because of the immigration
to Europe. Of course, the far right has been influenced by this to his own interests, of course. I'm talking about the far right. The most important thing, not the political aspect of it, the change in the society, how much Europe is ready or can or able to integrate those immigrants in their society. Even before that, mass immigration during the last 10 years to Europe, they had a problem in integrating the immigrants in their society. Now you have this problem, and you have the terrorism that inflicted France and UK and other countries. They will be affected because part of those immigrants are the extremists and the terrorists and the people who doesn't want to integrate. They want to go there just because they want to leave this region for different reasons. Security, economy, and
but there'll be no security collaboration to help these countries cope with that?
There's no, and
from your government?
We're not ready, and we said very clearly that we're not going to help any country in security while they work against Syria in every aspect, economy, security, and in their politics.
The boss of MI6, on his opening speech, Alex Younger, he said, you, Putin, you make a desert, then call it peace. The human tragedy is heartbreaking.
Any British officials is in no position to talk about the humanitarian aspect anywhere in the world. They've been part of the invasion in Iraq. They've been partner in killing more than 1.5 million Iraqis. They've been a partner in attacking Syria with their missiles and the embargo on Syria and killing hundreds of thousands of Syrians. And at the end, they are American puppets. They're not independent, to be frank. So they're in no position to talk about the humanitarian issues anywhere in the world, let alone their history in India in the past. Forget about that colonial era. I'm talking about their current and modern history. They're not in a position.
Well, just finally then, what about the election here? Is there going to be a general election in 2021 in Syria?
Yeah, definitely.
And will there be more than one person on the ballot?
Last time we were 3, and this time, of course, we're going to have as much as they want to nominate. There are going to be numerous nominees.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thanks for you.